And what a reality check about, honestly, the simplicity of how we actually organize, but also govern ourselves. This was never meant to be complicated with legal fiction and corporations and corporate veils where people can hide behind the corporate shield and not have any liability or accountability, i.e. skin in the game, when they're making decisions that impact the people's lives that sadly end up with like what we've seen with COVID, killing people, frankly, and conspiring to kill people and obfuscate the truth. So talk to us about the genesis of what you and Maureen are doing and walk us through it, please.
I love that. Okay, so right off the bat, I just want to say, great job in throwing together this marathon. This is amazing. It's all about saving America. It's all about us all coming together now, using the power of the word and the pen to move the needle. We've all been sort of taught, unfortunately, and we look back at some of the efforts that we've taken to date, and we haven't necessarily been acting as creditors. Okay, we've been acting as debtors. We were made debtors in this system very early on, as soon as we were born. And now it's time for us to start taking that creditor position and understand what a true republic is. So there are basically, and I'm just going to bring it all the way back to the basics if it's okay. There are really 4 forms of government, okay? 2 are honorable and 2 are dishonorable. 2 of them take you into a utopian society and 2 of them take you into a completely dystopian society. And we are really observing a world takeover, right? So the 2 that would be honorable would be, in the perfect world, if everyone was self-governed and there was trial by peers and there was self-accountability and there were villages taking care of villages, we wouldn't be in this mess, right? Because you would literally know who you are and everyone in the community would be taken care of. There wouldn't be lawlessness. Everyone would be self-governed because we are all our own nation, and when you take care of you, you can take care of others. The second most honorable form of government is a republic. So what is a republic? Right? We're going to get into that in a second. The next form of government, which would be dishonorable, is a democracy. That tends to be a dictatorship, and it almost always leads to a disparity of wealth between the common people. And then the worst case of a government is any form of ism, right? So you've got fascism, communism, socialism, what else? Capitalism. I'm sorry, no, I think I said them all. Anyway. So when you look at the state of affairs that we are in right now, there are 2 governments playing out. You have one that is fascist and one that is a republic. We just haven't been honoring the republic because we didn't really truly understand what a republic was. So in a republic, we the people are the body sovereign. We are the authorities. We created the government. We control the government, much more like an HOA. So when you move into a community, right, there is a group of people in the community, but if you never show up to the town meetings and you never take active participation in the people that you're hiring to uphold the rules by which you've laid out to run that HOA, then who's at fault? We are, because we're just sitting back, letting them control us, letting them dictate to us. We are not taking that active stance. So when our forefathers came over from Great Britain, they knew how Great Britain had taken over through corporatocracy. They wanted to leave that system and forge an entirely new system, a republic based on we the people, for the people, by the people. But then the people have been under attack ever since. So there's a reason that we're not in control right now mentally, but it's only mental. This is a mental or a conscious reality. We have to now take that role as creditor and put these people back in check because they are our trustees. This is a trust. A republic is based on a trust. So our forefathers set it up to where they were essentially the grantors of this trust. We are the beneficiaries. We're the benefactors of this trust that they set up. And a trust can't fail for lack of a trustee, which means that when we bring people in to operate for us, by us, and to uphold the trust indenture, which was the organic constitutions that our forefathers set up. This was a brilliant system, but it requires participation. This was a great American experiment. And ultimately, we really only had that freedom for a time before they usurped us and they came in 1871 and invaded us. So let's talk about a democracy. A democracy actually is more of a concept where we, the people, are ruled over by a government, a dictator. And although everything is supposedly a majority vote in a democracy, no one's taking thought or account of the little people. No one's keeping the government in check. So a democracy ends up being a theory, an idea. We have to protect our democracy, and they'd love to brainwash us into making us think that a democracy is the right way to go. But it almost always creates a massive disparity of wealth. The little people are not considered. So, just consider all the parents out there. Not everyone has children. Not everyone's going to vote for children. Do you know what I'm saying? So it makes more sense that the community, like as in an HOA, shows up to the meetings and actually helps dictate what your trustees are doing. These are trustees. They work for us. So you have right now two governments. You are literally watching two governments. And when we get sucked into the fake, phony, false de facto government, the one that's currently running, the people that are sitting on podiums posing as if they are, in fact, our elected officials when they're not, we're giving all of our power over to authority figures, but they are not our authorities. These are our trustees. These are people that are supposed to come on to position as servants' hearts. They are supposed to serve us. They are supposed to carry surety to us, we the people. But instead, they flipped it, and they made it so that we the people are holding surety to a corporate debt. So you basically have two forms of government, and what we're about to do is we're going to teach the people how to restore the government that has always been in operation. It's just happening behind the scenes, and until we reclaim it and until we start operating within that republic and we start taking on the role as the body sovereign, the people, we the people, putting our publicly elected officials, supposedly, right, our elected officials, aka trustees, and make them responsible for the trust that our forefathers set up. Until we do that, we're going to continue in this state of chaos. So right now, I think it's all about educating the people that you have the power, and here's how you do it. You put them on notice, and that's exactly what we did for Bonds for the Win. And that was such an empowering movement. Really, let me just say just huge kudos to all the parents and all the people that stood up against these elected officials during that time, because what we were doing was we were taking a creditor stance. We were saying, hey, if you claim to be this person, show me your oath of office, show me your bond, and show me your liability policy. Because from there, we're going to let you know that you are personally liable for every single decision you make. Just because you think you work for a corporation does not protect you against personal liability. And a perfect example of that is if I hired you to work for McDonald's and I told you to go rob a bank, who do you think is liable, right? So in the Bonds for the Win movement, it was simple three-step process for people to take a creditor position and say, wait a minute, who are you? Who do you work for? And what we found in these nationwide, it was literally worldwide audit, was that none of these people have actually signed an oath to us. We took our eye off the ball. These are supposed to be trustees, and they did not even sign an oath to us. Instead, what has happened over the course of the last 100 years, 120 years, is that they have usurped. There was this perfect republic that we stopped managing. They rolled in corporatocracies and corporations wherein they set the rules. And so long as we are foolish enough to fall for the fact that they set the rules, then they can keep control over us and they can continue to force us into their construct of government. But that government isn't real. It's only real in our minds because they don't have jurisdiction over us. We, because of the forefathers, had founding documents. Every state was its own country. It was its own sovereign nation. It had its own organic constitutions. And that was the rules by which we were supposed to uphold the trust that we have now inherited from our forefathers. So when we, the people, realize the power in the trust, and we realize that every single person is holding liability for their own actions, then we can settle the matter in equity. So the best way we can turn the tables is we can shine a whole lot of light on what they're not doing, because it's in the inaction that we have to catch them, right? So the Operation Restoration really is focused around catching them in their inaction, operating as the body sovereign, because that's what we are, and we do all have to back up against each other right now, just like these elephants, and we need to work together to shine light on the machine and call out these elected officials that are not doing anything with the evidence that we provide and run them straight out of office, because it's our job to fire them. Just like it would be at the HOA, it would be our job to go in and fire them and move in someone who will do their job. And we're now seeing that everywhere. It's amazing. We've got de jure sheriffs signing up. We've got people that are taking back their counties all over the country. We are seeing the move happen now because as people step back in their power and they start taking lawful jurisdiction over their government. All right, so everything is wordplay, as you know. They try to trick us in words, and everything is based on a con. So unless you are willing to participate in their con system, you are not a victim to it. So there are basically 4 ways to respond to any presentment. You can, and 2 again are honorable and 2 are dishonorable. The most honorable way you can respond to any presentment is through acceptance. I accept you and I accept me. I can see what you're doing and I can see what I'm doing. I know my power and I know your power, right? That's operating acceptance. Catch them all in the act and let everybody see what they do, okay? The next way you can respond is a response of basically a conditional acceptance. Sure, courts, I'll contract with you if you can prove that you have jurisdiction over me. That's a conditional acceptance, but that doesn't move the needle. It doesn't change anything. It's only defense. When we operate in acceptance, we start taking offense. And that's at the court. And he said, sure, I know who I am, and I know who you are, and I know you're about to trade me on the markets. So why don't you go ahead and show me that appearance bond, and I can settle all matters in the public debt. So he was letting them commit the crime so that he could turn around and serve them with affidavits of truth. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to let these people commit the crime so that all the people can see all of their inaction is an action. Because high crimes are highly punishable by law, but covering up high crimes is just as punishable. Okay. The way the affidavit system works, by flipping the playbook on the enemy, on the devil. Okay. So when an officer pulls you over, all right, and he doesn't know better. So let me just start by saying 99% of these people that are in this situation are, they don't realize it. So it's our job now to wake them up, to unfortunately hard pill them, all right? So I'm going to start by saying I'd say 99% of most police officers are good people in bad situations. However, when they pull you over, they are handing you a ticket. It's also known as an affidavit. It's also known as an indictment, and it is an affidavit of fiction. Why is it an affidavit of fiction? Well, because the only way he can contract with you is if he can get you to represent your corporation. Because in maritime courts, corporations can only contract with other corporations. A lawyer can only represent you as a corporation. And let me ask you a question, Ann. Can your corporation run a red light?
No, my corporation cannot run a red light.
No. So he's giving you an affidavit of fiction because he works for a legal fiction and he's trying to get you to respond to the legal fiction. And if he can't get you to respond to the legal fiction, he can't contract with you. In that case, what you want to do is let him commit the crime. We're going to operate in acceptance. Not that we're trying to trap him or anything. We're just trying to educate him, right? So the first thing you can ask a police officer is, excuse me, sir, are you attempting to traffic my person? And the person is the all caps corporation. Okay. And he's going to say no because he doesn't know better, and that's okay. But what he's ultimately doing is he's giving you a ticket, an affidavit of fiction, and that's got a 30-day notice. You've got a choice to show up at court, right? You know that if you don't show up at court, you're presumed guilty, right? And you know that they're going to then sell that as a debt instrument. But what you don't know is that in every court case, they're going to open up a trust in your name. Now, did you give them permission to do that?
No, I did not.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to put 3 bonds in that trust. They're going to put a bid, a performance, and a payment bond in there. And then they're going to basically trade you on through your Sesta KV trust, which you didn't even know you had, and they're going to make anywhere from $2 to $5 million per traffic violation. And technically, in the background, they are then selling those as debt instruments. The courts are selling them as debt instruments up to the Treasury.
That's right.
So they're making good money on issuing traffic violations, and that's why they have a quota. So what you could do is you could turn around and grab an affidavit of truth. So you leave the court systems completely behind because they're all corrupt at this point. They're all just administrative maritime courts. And what you could do is you can operate. So imagine you're on a playing field down here, Ann, and this is maritime. We're going to take it to a playing field up here. And by the way, the playing field down here, we're like in the football field, and we're all the way back to the 1-yard line because no one ever taught us how to play offense. But I'm about to take you to a football field right above that. And you're going to fly right over to the end zone because you're operating in truth. And no one can rebut truth. So you're going to give them words that no man can gainsay. And in your affidavit of truth, you're going to say in that affidavit, there is no evidence that you didn't just hold me at gunpoint and attempt to traffic my person. There's no evidence that you're not working for a foreign corporation. There's no evidence that you are actually, in fact, a police or policy enforcer for the original republic. There is no evidence that you haven't signed an oath or have signed an oath to we the people, right? So what we are going to do with this affidavit of truth is we're reasonable. It's a negotiable instrument. So this officer can choose to either sign an oath to we the people, or he can choose to resign. He can do anything he wants. He can negotiate this instrument. But technically, he's taking a personal liability with every single ticket that he issues because he is working for a crime syndicate. And because he doesn't know that, every single man or woman is accountable for their deeds on this earth. So they have to be notified. So you put them on notice. So in your affidavit of truth, not only should it have documentaries to wake this officer up and let him know what's really going on, because again, he's probably a good guy, doesn't know what's going on. But in this affidavit of truth, you can let him know that there are all these things he has to rebut. In other words, he has to prove. You're giving him force, you're forcing burden of proof back on him that he has, in fact, signed an oath to we the people. And he hasn't, so he cannot prove otherwise. And when you put it in a negative advertement statement, you're basically saying there is no evidence to show that you did not just do this. Now, this is a very powerful statement. A negative advertement statement is very different than asking them for burden of proof. I'm not saying, hey, under burden of proof, prove to me you didn't just do this. Prove to me there wasn't bank fraud. Under burden of proof, prove to me that you didn't just willingly traffic my person. They can't prove that. But if you say there is no evidence, you're asking him to come to a court of record with evidence. You're forcing him to prove his innocence. So you're saying there's no evidence to prove you didn't just hold me at gunpoint. Okay, and which is extortion. It's forced law. Okay, so when you do this, again, in your affidavit of truth, you give him a timeline. He's got 30 days to seek a trial by peers, or to cure, or he is now personally liable, and you can rack up these charges to about $1 million a pop. So if some of the people knew this right now and they were serving affidavits back to police officers, we're really just flipping the playbook. And at that point, this becomes a debt instrument. And we, the people, actually carry all the power because we, the people, outnumber our trustees. We have to now rein in the people that have been misled. And really, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. We really are in a time of duality where it's up to us to teach people the right way to behave in society. And it doesn't matter if it's a drag queen. It doesn't matter if it's the teacher that did nothing to stop the drag queen from coming into school. It doesn't matter if it's the principal that allowed this pornography in the library. It doesn't matter who you are. You're personally liable. And that's exactly what the parents did for Bonds for the Win. We held these elected officials personally liable for their actions, and they almost always changed their tone instantly, Anne. It was like these people during Bonds for the Win, when the parents were serving these school boards, they were turning off the lights, calling the police, running out of there, and they would come back 7 days later and vote 7-0, no more masks and no more porn in the library. And I want to tell everyone the power behind that was so incredible. It's in the entire country. Next thing you know, we had 50 million children liberated, but it didn't stop there. It was a domino. It kept going. Because the people were taking that credit or position, it just kept going. Next thing you know, the private schools pulled the masks. The colleges pulled the masks. Next thing you know, they pulled them off the airlines. They pulled the requirement off department stores. Next thing you know, it was worldwide. And it went worldwide because the people took the creditor position. We asked them, wait a minute, who are you? Who do you work for? Let me see your oath of office. Let me see your bond. You work for us. And it isn't until we put them back in check in the masses that we actually can see and feel the power of that ultimate republic that set up the republic. They knew this was a great American experiment. And the experiment was, can we hold it? Can we hold it? Can we preserve it? Can we show up to every one of those town hall meetings? Can we watch over and preserve and make sure these trustees are falling in alignment? I think that what you're going to see is you're going to see a success story in America, and then every country will follow. I think you're going to see people becoming more active in that proactive stance of sending out these affidavits of truth and really putting people on notice. It's the notices that cause people to look in the mirror because, again, most of these people have just been misled. So it's throughout the world. A lot of these countries, especially like Russia and China, they have been captivated and captive of this communist takeover regime for quite some time. It will take them time. But if the people rise up and see that it's working in America, see what a republic is versus a democracy, law forms that have been completely kept from us. I mean, they had taken over all of our institutions. They had dumbed us down as children. We didn't know about these law forms. We didn't know about how to create a utopian society. And until the world can see the way that we're going to stand on our forefathers' original constitutions, and I say original because remember, when the devil rolls in his counterfeit, he's going to rewrite that Constitution over and over. So you always have to know what you're looking at. You have to go back to before 1871. You have to be looking for the original forefathers' trust and the original Constitution, which is the trust indenture. That's the rules by which we are supposed to maintain and uphold our trust. If you don't have trustees sitting in those seats, how are you supposed to maintain the rules of the trust? Do you see how they usurped us in such a way that they disempowered that Constitution because we don't have anyone in there as trustees to uphold it?
You're right. We don't have real trustees sitting in the seats as indentured servants to us. We have public officials who were selected. So let's just talk about Arizona first. We saw with our own eyes exactly how these NGOs are using our money that's being printed by the Federal Reserve, which is not constitutional. It's not part of our treasury. It was never set up that way. They're printing money like crazy and funding through the UN these non-governmental organizations to help weaponize mass human migration and bringing a bunch of people in this country that would never have come here except for the fact that they're getting paid when they get here and they're making it available to them, including 3 hots and a cot, $2,200 a month, a place to stay, and really no clear timeline into the future when they'll be able to get a green card and actually work lawfully in this country for a living. So we're going to fund all this. So how do we get Mr. and Mrs. Venezuelan, who 70% of their country is left to come here, understand that you can go home to your country and do what we're going to do here, what we're engaging in right now? How do we convince them of that? What do we say?
Well, I love that you bring that up because I was like, man, if they come over our border and they want freedom, all we have to do is let them know, guess what? We don't have freedom either. Why don't you join our army? It's like, let's put them to work. I'm just saying, at some level, I just really think that we have to restore freedom where we have true, just authority to do it in America first. And then we can teach other countries how to do this and how to take back their republic, take and install a republic. But right now we have so much work to do in America with jurisdiction. Does that make sense? Like what you're looking at right now is a complete corporatocracy. You have to look at them like a McDonald's, brush them aside. We no longer operate a McDonald's. We don't even recognize McDonald's as our government. You have two governments, no longer recognize that fake one and start to recognize only the one that's legitimate, and that is the republic. That's all that really matters. We have to remember that we live in it's a free market in America. You have right now 18,000 police precincts that are all foreign corporations. Okay, we just don't have any de jure police precincts that are working for the republic. So what we need to do is realize that we can simply set up our republic and our courts and our even jails in order to restore law and order in America first. And I feel like once we have law and order here, we can then help them. We'll go back to their country and we'll help them. Does that make sense? I just don't know enough about the Venezuelan laws and how they were usurped. Like all I am really familiar right now is how the U.S. has been essentially seized by foreign adversary. We are looking at this Revolutionary War. We never won it, you guys. We never won the Revolutionary War. Well, we may have won it for 7 years, but then they took it back by changing the foundation of our country and then fooling all of the people into falling into line with their rules and ordinances. But we don't have to fall in line with those because they actually don't have any relevance to us unless we are a corporation. And I'm not a corporation. I'm living, and you can't prove I'm not living. So at the end of the day, when we take this back, I think it's going to be the model that we then share with the world, if that helps.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mickey. That's exactly how I see it. We have to put our oxygen mask on us first before we can put oxygen mask on the rest of the world. And even in this fictional world of statutory administrative law, right, which is what the government in Washington, D.C., and what all state governments and municipal governments are operating under right now because they've all gone into corporate status. Because why? they could do whatever they want behind that corporate liability shield, be protected from us. Good news is, Pfizer, we're coming
they're
for
not
you
protected from
because
us.
you knew what you were doing. That 1986 Childhood Vaccine Safety Act doesn't apply. We've seen the data. It was released. We got those pages. We saw the trials. We saw that you knew that those poison death shots were harmful. You lied and covered it up, and you used your agency friends at the NIH, CDC, and FDA to lie to all of us, include safe and effective. Again, like you said, wordsmithing is really important because safe, how could they know it's safe? There was never long-term data studies. But they did know it wasn't safe because their studies in the short term were showing that women were losing their pregnancies at 84%. And, they knew about cardiomyopathy and pericarditis. They could tell that it was going to affect turbo cancers and create that problem that we see today. And then, of course, everything they did to us by not letting us see our doctors because we were locked down. So those patients that had cancer treatments going on, their cancers just got away from them, and they created a mass genocide, not only here but worldwide. So what other countries are doing specifically, they just found Israel guilty of genocide twice the other day. And before we go down that rabbit hole, let's face it, war is genocide, and we now know who's funding both sides of the war, the bankers. So the ICJ should be looking at the bankers right now that are funding this genocide of people on both sides. In Israel, Palestine, all of it, just people in general are being wiped out. And it's all government created, and it's all, private banking funded. And of course, coming from these demons at the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and others, the Committee of 300. And I digress. Because again, this is about...
Let's talk about their Achilles heels. Let's talk about their weaknesses, right? Because we have to come back in with strength and power, and we can't give too much power to the people at the top. We have to start taking out all the minions at the bottom, because it's the minions at the bottom that do his bidding. Right. And it's the minions at the bottom that are all misled. They don't know they're personally liable. They actually don't know the law. Okay. So we're going to teach them the law. We're going to roll back in the courts, in these, trial by peers and these pettit juries and these grand juries. But we're going to start at the bottom. Like you said, at the very base, we got to take back every city. We got to force our trustees to do their job. And then we got to take back every county, force those trustees to do their job. Take back every state, and now you don't have that. You're not in a situation anymore where you're dependent on a corporatocracy. You're not in a situation where you're dependent on having to take benefits from this dictatorship, illusion of control, and all the people working for those. So let's just list them, okay? They took over every city, county, and state. So all the people sitting in those positions are likely not working for us. They're foreign actors. They are foreign invaders. They are redcoats. They are domestic terrorists. And if we don't go in and run them out and serve them with affidavits of truth and hold them personally liable for their actions, they're going to keep doing it. What have we done to date? When we saw all those, involuntary / experimental treatments, we knew that it was wrong. But how many of us actually served them, Anne? How many of us actually took the creditor position and asked each one of these county officials who they work for and asked for their oath of office? We didn't know better. We didn't know to do it then, but we do now. We do now. And every single police precinct, every single court, every single jailhouse, they're all working for the foreign corporation, the foreign enemy, the foreign invaders. The redcoats are here. Why are we begging our oppressors to save us? It's literally like a Stockholm syndrome. We've got to break out of it. It's a mental cage in our own head. We have to take authority and hold these people to account by putting them on notice. If we don't go to every pediatrics company in the world or family practice in the world and warn them by dropping all that evidence on the table and saying, I know your medical board is saying this, I know that Google is saying this, I know the media is saying this, but here's the actual evidence, and now you have to decide if you want to hold liability or not.
Which has been the usurpation of our government from the people to these criminal cabal, to the DC District of Corruption or District of Criminals that live in that dumpster fire that's burning its way down to the waterline. And I mean, they're going to burn themselves all the way out because we the people see it now. We're waking up. We have set aside what we were supposed to be doing, and we have become a nation of apathy with a pandemic of obesity because we've been allowed to be poisoned by the food, the air, and the water that we subsist on because our abusers, the Stockholm Syndrome abusers, have put us and cast a spell over us, and we just have to stop paying attention. We are derelict in our duty.
It's just a spell, people. You
It's a
don't
spell.
have to contract with them. You can operate in acceptance. I see you, and I know who I am. And when you see who they are and you see what they're doing and you serve them, they will stop doing it. It is that simple. 90% of the devil's army have been misled. This is that duality of the splitting of the Red Sea. There's good and evil, but the best way to walk it is the middle way, the middle line. You got to find that middle line. You got to warn those that have been misled. We were all asleep at one point. Okay? The police officers think they're upholding justice. You know, some of these lawyers think they're working for the good. What they don't understand is that they're working for the crown. And we have to now realize that it is just as easy for us to restore our republic and operate within that republic where we have a vote. We didn't have a vote in the corporation. All of the 2020 election was a fraud. We were voting for a corporation. I know for a fact I don't have a vote for McDonald's. So I'm glad we caught all the corruption and all of the misappropriation of voting and so on. But we really actually were not voting for our republic. We were voting for the fake, phony, false corporatocracy government. That was not our government. And in fact, by giving them our registration to vote, we gave them the rights to be our trustees over our Sesta KV trust. So the governors could claim fake flu and draw as much money as they want out of the world's population, of the population of that state.
Right.
Isn't that scary? And so
It's
they can come up with
terrifying.
unlimited funds to take us to war.
But here's another little simple point that a lot of people fail to understand. If you're a president of a corporation, you don't have to be a citizen, right? You can be whatever you want to be. President Trump was the president of a corporation. And because he didn't have a Congress that he could work with, this is all de facto administrative, legislative democracy. He wasn't operating in a republic. He really became a benevolent dictator in a sense, right? Because he operated using executive orders, which is like the chief executive officer of a company saying, okay, I want everybody on Tuesday to wear a yellow tie or you're fired. And people, if they value their jobs, are going to wear the yellow tie on Tuesday. And let's face it, people by default, most of humanity is good on the inside. Are they lured by Babylon and money and yes, of course. Do we have to check ourselves all the time? Absolutely. Is it wrong to be a capitalist? No. Is it wrong to be a Marxist, fascist, corporatocracy demon? Yes, because now you are obfuscating the legality and the lawfulness of operating in honor, and you're now conspiring with government and companies for the betterment of those two for-profit entities versus the people. So we are going to be restoring the republic where our government is not a for-profit entity comprised of many for-profit agencies, in as much as it's, humbly representing the people's wishes, which is something we haven't seen. We see a lot of grandstanding. Why did we have to wait so long? Why did we have sheeple instead of people governing? We have sheeple that we're following and listening to and expecting them to do something. We need to say we're accountable, right?
We are accountable, and they are very good at dangling carrots. They're very good at, we'll do this one right thing and then we'll do these 10 other really bad things. We can't allow that anymore. We got to run them out. Literally just catch them in the action. Great, you did that great thing, but let's watch this bad thing you did and let's serve you an affidavit of truth so that you can prove you didn't do it. It's not, we have to stop looking at these politicians like, oh, look, they saved us. Or, oh, well, there was this great court case that just, we won. Bullshit. Right. You didn't win anything. It's a fake, phony, false corporation. They can slide that precedent straight under the rug the second you leave because they're not operating in just law. They're not operating in a republic. They're operating in an illusion to keep you pacified.
That's right.
I'm over the pacification. I'm ready to be a creditor. I'm ready to hold these people accountable for every last decision they make, every penny they spend. Every man is accountable.
That's right.
I don't care if you work for McDonald's. If you find out what's in that food, you better quit because you're part of killing people.
That's right. That's exactly right. Once you know we're setting it up where there's no corporation, no corporate veil is going to save you. If you know you have a duty to mankind to let them know that there has been an egregious act leveled against your fellow man. It's that simple. It's a Good Samaritan clause, right? If you are driving your car and you see somebody else in a car in front of you hit a bicyclist, but they maybe didn't see it happen or they didn't realize it happened, you witness it, you have a Good Samaritan duty to stop and render aid to that poor man or woman on the bicycle who was hit by the car in front of you. It is that fundamental. That's called being a human being, for goodness sake. This is not that complicated. It's right versus wrong, good versus evil, and we're there. We are really there, and I think that's the message that today is going to bring. The tactical civics is also going to be that leveler that is going to adjudicate good versus evil, because that is in fact what we're up against. And we're going to put that power back in the pen, back in the people to investigate. Mickey, we have plenty of evidence of all the stuff that's gone on.
Knowledge is power.
Decades.
Knowledge is the power, you guys. We don't need you to convoy anymore. We don't need you to march. We don't need more rallies. We need you to pick up the pen. That's how they took over our country, and that's how we're going to take it back. I'm tired of everyone sitting around and bitching and complaining and taking the dangling carrot. Because if I hired you to be the governor of my sovereign nation, you better be doing everything right. Not just a couple things. You can't be stealing over here and doing that good thing over here and expect to get away with it anymore. No, we're watching. We are the overwatch. We are the body's sovereign. We are the ones who control government. We created it. We have to manage it. But we're not doing that. Not because we didn't mean to. We just didn't know how to. And now we do. Again, now we know. And I'll remember, I just want to say, you literally swipe the whole court system aside. Swipe the lawyers aside. They can only represent you if you're a corpse. And you're not a corpse. We're coming into the land of the living. This is when the dead would rise in Christ. This is when we're being given the words no man can gainsay, because we are about to take this country back, and the whole world will be watching because of Maureen Steele bringing every single party together to put all the light on our power and our duty to uphold this beautiful inheritance that our forefathers have given us.
Boom. And that's going to be the last word from the beautiful and brilliant Mickey Klon. I am so appreciative of everything you've done. One of the greatest days for me ever was when I met you and learned about Bonds for the Wind. And I remember talking about it on stage at a Reawaken America event.
You were on the chase with us, remember? You helped us with our first win.
That's
were on
right.
the chase. We were following Violet. She was calling out this, elected official, and the woman was on the run. And that's what you're about to see. You're about to see these people run because they know they're guilty.
That's right. They're building bunkers for what? They think they're probably building bunkers to hide from all of us. But that's okay. We're a peaceful assembly of people. We're not here to create violence, but we're here to hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable and put them on notice is the first thing. They will all probably move when you put them on notice. That's all you got to do is take that creditor position, ask who are you and who do you work for, because you're not here for me. And when we start to restore all of our de jure police precincts and our de jure courts and our de jure grand juries, you're going to see a big shift.
Amen, sister. Amen. I look forward to delivering that retribution with you and the millions of other Americans who are going to take up the pen, for it is mightier than the sword. And we're going to take back our beautiful republic and stand back up America as the example of freedom for all of humankind here on the beautiful planet Earth, the one that God